Good evening from yammybtv. Wishing you all well today, or afternoon if it reaches you in time, actually. Good afternoon from yammybtv. Sending loads of love as usual. Hoping your day is going the best it possibly can. Over the months, we talked a lot about who's the greatest and who's the strongest and who's the fittest. And, a lot of it's tongue in cheek by me sometimes. Best to let you know, most of you know already that, that on any given day, two men that can have a proper row, anyone can lose on that day, depending on, that day, what you're feeling, the things that are going on in your head, whether you're feeling right or you slept properly, or it just is it that another man just is a little bit better than you. And it doesn't mean that just because he beat you that everybody else is going to beat you, because as we talked about recently in the boxing side of things, it's more of the consistent greatness of producing the high level quality that keeps a man better than the rest. Now, Corinthians, hearing today from sister, one of my angels, that it's not so much the similarities and competing with men, more what is the difference between all these men that I met in prison, that makes them stand out and have the edge. And today we're talking about who I believe was the most intelligent man that I ever met. So I'm talking not just academically, I'm talking strategically, and the likability factor and the way that we can stop fights as well as start fights, and we can, or the way of dodging fights even, or reading situations from a mile away, you're not even in the mix, but with your insight and your intuition and with your knowledge of seeing so many different things along the years, you can see quite clearly that something can lead to something else just by the eye. Not always right, of course, but the chances of probability and possibilities is that that man, I believe, gets it spot on most of the time. So I'll start with, I'm going to go around just a few. I'm not going to say, I'm going to say who my number one is, but there's no difference between a lot of these that I'm going to mention today. And I'll do the best on another occasion to tell you why I believe it, and not just because I favoured them or I liked them, or I do things on the balance of fairness as well, because there's a couple that might be mentioned that I don't really like, but I would still have to give them their dues, because when it really mattered, especially during times of adversity where all the chips are down and all against you, and you can find a way out of things just by careful planning and strategically moving things around into your favor. Like, even if you're outnumbered, or there's any man can run down the landing with a blade in his hand and go and harm someone. It just means you got a lot of bottle. But if another man knows that that's all you can do, that makes you dangerous, that one bit there. And it can be fearful for some men, but other men will be able to plan around that and know exactly what you're going to do, and know how to counteract that one bit of talent, if you like, or bravery in that game. So we're talking about in a prison setting. So we are talking educationally. We are talking the things that I've just spoken about, being able to read things, and the likability factor comes into it a lot as well in prison as well, because you could have like we talked about, the brawn, the brain, and the money. You need all three in my book, so you would have it for me to say yep, because there's many men who have got loads of money that can't have a row, but they could use that money to their advantage to win over certain situations. But also you could have many men who could have a right row, but they haven't got the brain to strategically save themselves from other situations, or they haven't the money. It's hard to find somebody with all three, and I have often mentioned a few names who I believe had all those things. They didn't have to hide behind. They could stand alone, on their own, hang around on their own, and get by without hiding behind people, which there is a lot of men that do. For safety reasons. Now we know it's moved up into a complete different level, where gang culture, everybody has safety in numbers, where in the old days, you would know a real man just by the way he carries himself during certain heated, high pressured moments, where some men leg it and run off, and others will wait and plan and wait for his moment. So I'll come up with a few names, and I'll tell you that from Lincoln, say, I'll say Jono, super fit, built like a tank, very intelligent, knows all his nutrition, very educationally equipped as well. Gets up at the crack of dawn and is swinging for England and doing his meditating and his stretching. You could ask him a few questions on various subjects and get answers from. And very, very likeable man as well. So I would name Jono from Lincoln as well as a man that's having a lot of those skills. I named quite a few from Manchester. We know that Big John Gray as well is a man who could be on his own in the desert all alone and survive and find a way through things. Been proven and seen by many can testify to that. We know that Barry Chapman, Gary Shearer, David Adetoro, Iggy, we know all the they're on their own, and Danny Dawson as well. Very surprising as well that most of these men that I'm mentioning today could have been anything, but they didn't have to be criminals. Not many do have to be criminals. Because they've intellectually and intelligent enough to have made a life without crime away from prison. And it's surprising, really. You think, well, you know, that's all he knows. That's all. No, Danny Dawson, those other four, Dave Adetoro, Gary Shearer, they were very intelligent and had the skills to survive in the desert all alone as well, and know the difference between fact and fiction, because we know there's a lot of men that hide behind men and are not on their own. They wouldn't be able to survive if the truth be known, and some lived off reputation just alone. And can't answer that right now, TJ. I'll get back to you in a bit, darling. But no, seriously. Who else as well? Birmingham. We'll talk about one from Birmingham. Courtney Needham. Athletically tall, very quiet, humble, one of the most nicest men you would ever meet. But step on him, like take an absolute liberty, you would come unstuck. Very educationally, academically equipped. Very good strategically, being able to sense danger and work things out. Knows, again, to be able to work out who to stay around, where the winners are, and stay away from the losers. Stay away from the ones that are a bit too snaky, a bit too slippery, and won't have nothing to do with them. He'd be good at making the decisions in those hostile hierarchy places where to survive and come out unscathed, you have to be very equipped in mostly all areas. That's why I say the brawn, the brain, and the money. Very few over the years that I met had all three. Many men could have around, didn't have the money. Many men could have the money but couldn't fight to save their lives, but they got the money so they can use power and do it that way. Many had the brain but couldn't fight, but would have, but to get all three together would be, in my book, I would say, yeah, that's what I mean by the difference in men that have got skills in all areas, but there is a slight difference to other men with good, great talent. So from Leeds, I think there was only a couple I really mentioned from Leeds. I'm not really allowed to talk about Frank so much. We took Dylan, we spoke about that. But we know that he had a variety of skills and was well liked as well. Because sometimes I think that without the likability factor, you could be a world-class fighter, but if on the day, if there was trouble setting for you and you wasn't well liked, you'd be the last to hear that they were all coming for you, so you wouldn't be able to prepare properly, in that life, because sadly, that a lot of the crimes in hierarchy places, top high risk security places, carry on from the outside, carry on in prison. There was one from Liverpool called Peter Clark, got a brother called Steve Clark, I believe. I think rest in peace, one of them. Very sad story. But he was an army man, Peter, and lifer as well. And I don't know, but he apparently won his appeal and was found not guilty. I think justly as well. So I'm hearing. But what a physical man. Very intelligent as well. Very business minded as well. And very, but I never blue as well. Remind me of Pepsi a little bit, Peter Smith, but what a serious man. But very respectful to everyone. Used to keep himself to himself. That from Blackpool we talk about Mark Brown, another one. But Mark, I wouldn't put him up there, like with all of them, because he was a one-man band like some of them, but with the skills that he didn't want all that. So he didn't need to have all those skills because the way that he was enough to get him through, because he wasn't at risk of being in the mix with trouble and that kind of stuff, because he kept himself well away from it all. So a lot of these, you know, so we get round to London. Talk about their situation. One time we was all in a room on a class in the morning before lunch. I think there was me, a couple from North Star, and GN, and no, Council. Everybody was in the room on this day, and at the door through the glass we saw security coming through, and there was a bald-headed one. I won't say his name, right? But GN turned around and tells everyone, when he comes through the room, everyone start laughing. Right? So I'm thinking to myself, right, yeah, all right. We all join in like we do, the sense of belonging. Yeah. So we all start laughing. As soon as he comes in, his face goes red, security will stop, you know. But in my mind now, I'm thinking there's a strategy behind this, because it gives people a chance to get rid of their things, because it disorientates the security man as he's coming through, because he's being belittled in some way. Sadly, kindly, or whatever. Who gives a monkeys? Well, not them days, I never anyway. But, you know, a strategic move for a reason and to get a result out of. So that's what I mean by intelligence, from all levels in there. You know, why I put certain men in certain positions. Only my opinions. In certain ways as well. So when I was going to get round, who else was going to get round to? Harry Roberts was mentioned a couple of times, but I didn't spend enough time with him. But he had all the skills, but the short time that I saw him, the likability factor, the business side of things in prison. He could turn a few quid over. He could look after himself as well. Very fit man like Kenny Noy down the gym, and that kind of thing. But, you know, and had the charisma as well. You know, a couple of these other guys, they never really had the charisma that you would expect from big men in their position, or maybe they just didn't want to show it. I don't know, but the ones I'm mentioning today are the ones that I say from the eye, what I saw. So Harry Roberts, I can't make as the most intelligent man because I didn't see enough of him. But there was also one from South London called Nookie Bandit, Nicky Harris, I think his name is, right? So intelligent, bright. Used to get up in the morning and stretch and know what ligament and joints and things and that. Could hold a classroom on his own, like as a teacher. Like you could give him a subject and he would be able to go up there and take the class himself, which for a teacher that would be sent in from the out, he would be able to do that. I would witness that. And also very physically supreme as well, and very liked as well. Well, on top of that, so he's a man I'm very, very, very respected highly in intelligence as well, and would be obviously in the hierarchy of the Cates, would be able to sense danger the minute it would be happening, because like Tony Argent says, and you know that I'm going to say Tony very, very bright academically, very psychologically as well, very deep man, could work out anything without knowing anything, just by watching things from a distance, because he wouldn't mix in with all the crowd, you know, daily and that kind of stuff, but he would still know how certain outcomes would come without really having all the facts in place. So on the possibility and the probability kind of things, he could make a proper judgment and get it right. So yeah, I'm not going to, because people are going to say, well, I'm going to favour him. But is that too much? I'm going to do a part 2 to this, honestly. But I'm going to tell you who the most intelligent man was that I ever met was Razor Smith. For the simple reason that he could look after himself anyway, we know that. Business-wise in jail, we knew that he could do that on his own, remember, all the time. Could read situations from a mile off. No one ever took a liberty or tried anything with Razor, and he spent years and years in prison. Kept himself well out of things, but would give you a straight answer to almost anything, whether it was in your favour or not, or whether you liked it or you didn't. But the prison law, you'd ask Razor. If you wanted a Mackenzie friend, someone to represent you, to come down into adjudication and nicking in front of the governor, if you couldn't word it, you would want to pay Razor. Say, Razor, can you come down and word this? And Razor would say, he wouldn't have to refer from the book. He would say, oh, paragraph 37A, that's blah, blah, blah. That's not allowed to happen, because because a lot of men are not familiar with the law and what can be done and what can't be done. And as well as that, from as early as the 90s, I used to go past his cell. I think we was in Albany together, I think, in the early days. And he used to have his little typewriter, and he was writing books and studying all alone from way, way, way back. So he used his time very, very cleverly to put himself in the position he got to today, which is crime-free, away from that life, and a man that can tell you the absolute truth of what's fact and what's fiction in that place. So, yep, the most intelligent means a lot of things to me, but we're talking in a prison setting, and as well as that, has proved it out here as well. So that's one's to razor, but I'm going to do a part 2 on this one, all right? See you all soon.